Colorado has their first new wolf pups in decades. Wyoming grizzly bears are being hazed to protect poorly behaving humans. And an autonomous shuttle is being tested in Yellowstone National Park. I'm your host, Robert Witham, on this episode of Nomad News. If you're new to this program, Nomad News is highlights from the news that may be of interest to nomads, travelers, and those who love the great outdoors. Alright, so Colorado reports its first wolf pup sightings in about 80 years. Wolves in Colorado were eradicated in the 1940s by poisoning and hunting. So a ballot initiative was passed last year in Colorado that provided for the reintroduction of wolves on the western slope. So wildlife officials in Colorado have been watching a pair of wolves that they're calling John and Jane since earlier this year. Recently, John and Jane were spotted with 3 wolf pups in Jackson County, which is about 150 miles northwest of Denver. Needless to say, the wolf reintroduction measure has faced backlash from some residents who are not supportive of the idea. The ballot initiative did include plans for compensation, however, in the event that livestock are lost to wolves. Now, Wyoming grizzly bears are being hazed following irresponsible public behavior. A joint operation involving personnel from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Yellowstone National Park, Grand Teton National Park, Wyoming Highway Patrol, and Wyoming Game and Fish Department was undertaken in June to haze grizzly bears along Togwotee Pass near Jackson Hole, actually between Jackson Hole and the tiny town of Dubois, Wyoming, if you've ever been there. The reason for this operation was described as irresponsible public behavior, which included people feeding, disturbing, approaching, and harassing grizzly bears. Now I'm going to go on record here and say none of that sounds like a good idea to me, but it was happening. And as a result of this human behavior, grizzly bears around Togwotee Pass were becoming habituated to human presence, which obviously creates a dangerous situation for people and bears. Specifically, officials were concerned about a sow grizzly, known as grizzly bear number 863, and her 2 cubs, which had been hanging out in the area and had become quite accustomed to getting food from humans and were no longer concerned about human presence. So a hazing operation was conducted with these, like I said, 5 different agencies during the second half of June in an attempt to drive the bears away from the area. If the hazing was not successful, wildlife officials said they may need to consider relocating or even euthanizing the bears. So here's the part where it messes up people and humans when people feed bears or otherwise habituate them to human presence, and that is that it's obviously dangerous for people to have a multi-100-pound predator, very powerful, very fast, dangerous predator who's no longer afraid of people and who's now willing to come into people's camps and rest areas or around people's houses and things. So that's obviously a concern. But then when that happens, then the bears end up being euthanized. So it's a losing proposition all the way around. I did go over Togwotee Pass in late June on the way over to Idaho to meet up with Deborah and Joan over there. If you see any of those videos from Deborah's channel, I did see multiple wildlife personnel at different spots along Highway 26 between Dubois and Jackson Hole, mostly along the Togwotee Pass area. I did not see any bears, unfortunately. I would love to have seen some bears, but I guess they were, at least that day, they had them scared away. So, meanwhile, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service asks the public to never approach bears. Always remain at least 100 yards away or about the length of a football field. Practice ethical wildlife viewing by remaining a safe distance and never disturbing natural behaviors. If an animal notices you and or changes their behaviors or actions, you are too close. Never feed, leave food for, or make food accessible to bears. Obey traffic signs, laws, and regulations. Stop only in designated pull-off areas and follow the direction of wildlife management officials. Do not interfere with or approach hazing operations. So I'll have links to this story and the others we talk about in this episode in the video description if you want to check that out. National Park Service has begun testing autonomous shuttles in Yellowstone Park. Autonomous shuttles are now being tested in one of our nation's most popular parks, here in Wyoming, no less, up in Yellowstone. National Park Service has partnered with Beep Inc. to provide this program known as TEDDY, T-E-D-D-Y, for the electric driverless demonstration in Yellowstone. I always wonder where government agencies come up with these names and things and acronyms. But anyways, Teddy is the shuttle. So Teddy shuttles will operate on 2 routes in Yellowstone from June through August of this year. The impetus for the Teddy program is the massive increase in park visitors, which is straining resources. You've probably already heard about this in the news, how much visitations up at parks and campgrounds and that kind of thing this year. So, well, anyways, it's become a problem in Yellowstone, which was already busy, even 10, 15, 20 years ago when I went there the first time, I guess. 15, 20 years ago. It was already crowded. So, anyways, that's the impetus for it, is that it's gotten so crowded. The Teddy shuttles are fully electric and self-driving. Kind of makes me want to go and brave the crowds just to ride on one of these things, just try it out. Give you all a video clip, show you what it's like. They're pretty funky looking. Park visitors at Yellowstone have increased by 40% since 2008, and Yellowstone was the 6th most visited national park in the U.S. in 2019 with 4 million visitors. Well, thanks for joining this episode of Nomad News, everyone. Hope you enjoyed these stories. We'll see you again in the next episode.